Now the question I'm beginning to ask, and I think other fans are beginning to ask as well, at what point does Justin Fields become the full-time starter? Does Russell Wilson, is he still the guy? Or have you guys bought into Justin Fields as your future?
Well, it's kind of interesting because before we even opened the show here, my dad, Tom, friend of the show, he's been on the show once last year. He actually called giving some information from what Steelers radio is saying over here, local radio. And apparently, I'm not saying this is all fans. So before anybody chops my head off in Pittsburgh, there are some fans that are calling for Russell Wilson now to be traded, considering how decent Justin Fields has looked. Now, with me, from what I've seen over the last two games, especially last game, I feel like there was more of a chance. I feel like there was a lot of circumstances with both games where I feel like there could have been probably more touchdowns had there not been penalties. There was a penalty on Van Jefferson that would have been a George Pickens touchdown. There was an offensive pass interference in the game before in week 1 where George Pickens got an offensive pass interference and he would have had a huge gain. There was a holding call that would have also gotten George Pickens a huge gain during the Broncos game as well. George Pickens is just getting screwed a lot. I feel bad for him. There's just a lot of these penalties that are happening, not necessarily because of George Pickens, but because of he'll make a play and there'll be a holding or illegal hands to the face or some random penalty. But the reason that I bring all this up is because Justin Fields is showing a lot of strengths. And although he doesn't look like some of these other quarterbacks right now out in the NFL that are surprising, like, for example, I think Sam Darnold, we can easily say is probably surprising in Minnesota, considering I didn't expect Sam Darnold's offense to actually be doing pretty well. And I mean, hey, I mean, they beat San Francisco. I mean, Brock Purdy, whenever he's without one all-star, he doesn't know what to do. So I don't know.
Whoa.
I'm just saying he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know.
He's without more than one.
Okay. Well, now he's with
Christian McCaffrey's out.
Well, now he's without.
Debo got hurt.
Debo got hurt during the game. Yes. But all I'm saying, I'm just messing. Well, not really. But in the end, Minnesota has surprised. So there's some quarterbacks like Sam Darnold that are surprising a lot more than maybe a Justin Fields. But the thing is I think what Steelers fans do like about Fields is that he is showing a lot of signs of strength. I think that he is throwing those long, deep balls that Steelers fans have been wanting Kenny to do over the last 2 years that Kenny just really never did, except for like on 2 occasions. He's actually hitting his targets. He's having some beautiful throws that, unfortunately, 2 beautiful throws that George Pickens got called back because of penalties. I think it's not necessarily Fields' fault. I think it's the penalties that are getting called, and I'm not blaming the refs. I think that the offense should be cleaning up these penalties and shouldn't be doing as much nonsense. I mean, Broderick Jones got 3 penalties in a row, or not even in a row, just 3 penalties in a drive. I don't remember how close together they were, but it cost us a lot in that game. And I mean, and literally, I mean, that game was a ridiculous final. It was terrible, but I think the point being is that this is still a very different offense than it was last year. And I think that the reason fans are buying into Fields is because he's winning games and he looks a lot better than Kenny Pickett. And I think that he has an arm in comparison to Kenny Pickett, where Kenny Pickett's making a little dumb mistakes. Fields actually runs the ball. He's a really big scrambler and he still gets you that first down. The running backs don't look too bad. Some lanes are opening a lot more than they did last year. I think at the end of the day, I know a lot of people when we got Justin Fields were complaining, oh, he has a losing record. He's 10-22 all time or whatever his record was. Well, I think right now we just need somebody to win us games. I mean, they always say that weird slogan that defense wins championships. And even if our offense isn't the best in the world, our defense is really, really good. And I think that with that being said, if Justin Fields is just a game manager that gets us in the playoffs at 11-6 and the defense does the rest of the work, and who knows what happens after that, I don't care who you put in the freaking quarterback area. I mean, you had that in San Francisco. They put Jimmy Garoppolo in that offense. And I'm not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is a bad quarterback by any means, but he's no elite quarterback. Like, for example, you could name X, Y, and Z quarterbacks. You could say Patrick Mahomes. You could say Joe Burrow. You could say, I almost said Stroud. I feel like it's a little too soon to say that, but Josh Allen. and Lamar Jackson. You put somebody like that, it changes the entire complexion. But you threw in a Jimmy Garoppolo, and he still took you to a Super Bowl. Now, granted, you lost the Super Bowl, but it still doesn't take away the fact that he took you there, and he was just nothing more, I feel like, than like kind of like a game manager. And I think Fields is showing more than what he's showing that he can do more, but I think we're just being restricted by penalties. And when it comes to Russell Wilson, I think it's the same situation as last year. I mean, look, you're not paying Russell Wilson a lot. You're paying him $1 million, like league minimum for a veteran quarterback. And you're really not losing anything like you are, like, for example, in Cleveland, where if you bench Deshaun Watson, he's still going to get a certain amount of money guaranteed. I mean, we're not really losing anything by keeping Russell Wilson on the bench. And with Justin Fields, more people are leaning towards Fields being the future rather than Wilson being the future, because Wilson's already in his late 30s, whereas Fields still has time to develop. And if we can get out of having to deal with drafting a rookie and hoping that he pans out, we might as well just roll with what we got. And if Justin Fields is at least winning us games, and even if he's not like the best in the world, I mean, listen, Seattle's got Geno Smith over there, and I'm not disrespecting Geno Smith because he's a great quarterback, but listen, he's no elite quarterback in comparison to what's in the league, but he's winning games. I mean, granted, I mean, their season, I believe they're what, 1-1? Are they 1-1? 0-2?
I think so. They lost in overtime to the Patriots, which clearly the Patriots are just a way better team than we all thought, and that's why the Bengals lost to them.
I mean, listen, I don't disagree with that. I actually think the Patriots are a pretty decent team. I think Mayo's kind of an interesting. He does some interesting schemes. So
Seahawks are actually 2-0. It looks like.
Oh no, the Patriots didn't. Yeah, Patriots didn't beat them in overtime. It was
and they beat the Broncos week 1. So
yeah. So like, and that being said, with Geno Smith, it's not like he's some generational quarterback. I mean, he was a backup for most of his career, but he panned out. And I think with the same thing with Justin Fields, I think point being is that, I mean, if he can win us games, then why not?
So this is Justin Fields' next gen passing chart here from this past week, and only 20 attempts. But something to point out is he doesn't have a ton of passes behind the line of scrimmage, which means they aren't doing a ton of screen passes. They're trusting him with the ball. He has a bunch of short throws, but he does have some nice throws out by the 20. And something we talked about last week was, hey, he doesn't have any passes across the middle. These are all sideline throws. Well, now there's probably 6 I'd put in the middle there, and most of them are completions. So Justin Fields is spreading the ball out more. Like you mentioned, not a ton of big-time throws. I think there's only one throw on there that's actually would have been considered a big-time throw, and it fell incomplete. I don't know the context of that throw. Maybe you do.
I don't remember.
Justin Fields is putting the ball forward. He's trusting his arm to put it in some windows between the numbers. And that's what the Steelers needed coming out of a Matt Canada offense where everything was behind the line of scrimmage, jet sweeps, screen passes, maybe some quick slants, nothing too fancy. So I understand why Steelers fans really like seeing this guy, especially because he is putting up wins, or at least the team is winning while he is the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think with that also, I think people wanted Justin Fields. The reason that people are really admiring him, and I'm even admiring him, is because he's doing exactly what we as fans wanted Kenny Pickett to do, that Kenny Pickett did not. A scrambler, a fast guy that's going to get us those wins, still look good doing it, not looking too sloppy, actually making some plays happen and winning us games. And Kenny kind of did that towards the end of the season in 2022. But in 2023, last season, he really struggled in some of those big-time games. And now I'm not saying that some of those games that we played against, for example, San Francisco, could have went any differently if you have somebody like Justin Fields in the offense, or if Justin Fields was in an offense with Matt Canada. I really don't believe that we would have done differently. But I think with Arthur Smith's offense and the way that Fields is working inside the offense, I think that it looks really good. And like from the outside perspective, I know a lot of people that aren't Steelers fans are probably wondering like, oh, well, 117 yards and a touchdown isn't that many. Well, like I said earlier, there are a lot of penalties that have been being called on the Steelers. And that's not because, I mean, some of them obviously just like anything in any game at all. I feel like some of them are a little soft or a little questionable, but I feel like that goes for both sides of the ball. And it just so happened that the Steelers are getting cooked with these penalties, and some of which, multiple that I can think of, were one was a touchdown, one was a touchdown, and I think two were huge grabs that both got called back, all three got called back because of penalties that would have either resulted in a touchdown, a huge play, one which was like 25 yards that could have been, I think it put you on the 20-yard line. And I think the other one also put you on like the 8-yard line. And that was in week 1. And so, I mean, I think we're just getting screwed a lot with these penalties. I think if we can clean that up, I think Justin Fields we will score more than one touchdown. I know everyone's trolling about the idea we have one touchdown scored and 2 wins. But I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you win. It just matters that you did win. But also, I think that we will score more touchdowns in this offense. I know some people are a little nervous, but I'm not nervous. I think the one thing is once we clean up the penalties, I think we're going to be even better than we are now.
How do you feel going up against the Chargers?
Well, this is exciting for me because this is going to be finally a home game. We haven't played at home yet. So we have played in Atlanta and we have played in Denver, both of which were pretty much home games as always. I mean, Pittsburgh fans, they travel very well. But point being is that with it being a home game, it's our home opener. I would like to think that we're going to do pretty well. I mean, obviously Jim Harbaugh has done really well in the fold so far. However, Justin Herbert is possibly going to be not playing in that game, which might give the Steelers a little bit of advantage on defense. However, I think it's going to probably be another defensive matchup because the Chargers defense has looked pretty decent from what I've seen. I don't follow Chargers often, but just from what I've gathered, they've looked pretty okay. And so I'm pretty confident going into that game. Like I said, it's going to be a home game, so it'll be kind of nice to see what Justin Fields does at home with the home crowd, not having to deal with Falcons or Broncos fans and whatnot. So it'll be really cool to see what he does at home in comparison to being away. And then, of course, the following week we go away again to Indy. So hopefully, this will really help being at home. So, but I would say I'm pretty confident. I mean, obviously, you still have those little nerves that something could go wrong, but I think we've held our own away, and I think that we'll hold our own home as well, especially. And I'll feel even more confident if Herbert is not playing. But I obviously don't wish that Herbert is hurt because I do really like Justin Herbert. But I think I'd be more confident in playing against who's their backup. Do you know?
It's Easton Stick or Taylor Heineke. I would think Taylor Heineke would start over Easton Stick, but
I mean, Heineke is. I'd feel more confident with playing against Heineke. I mean, Heineke, I'm not downplaying him because he is a very skilled individual, but I would be more confident playing a Heineke offense than a Herbert offense, just because Herbert's a very well-rounded individual. But I feel like their offense still has a lot to work out too, because they got to really orchestrate how they're going to, I mean, J.K. Dobbins looks great, but they got to really orchestrate how they're going to use Ladd McConkey, Joshua Palmer, and their wide receivers over there. Because is it Quentin Johnston? Is that he had a pretty big game, but Ladd McConkey, that's supposed to be the top wide receiver, didn't really get much targets, so.
But he's been looking promising.
He does look promising.
Chargers fans got something there with Ladd.
Oh, I love Ladd. Yeah, Captain Conk. I love that guy. I mean, I do. I think once they figure it out, it's just like any offense. I think once they figure it out, I think they can be cruising too. That's why I think, like, for Steelers fans, there's nothing to worry about when it comes to the offense right now. Now, if we did have a nice second wide receiver, nothing against Van Jefferson or anything like that, but if Roman Wilson was healthy in that rotation as well, I think the team would look very different. But Roman Wilson is still dealing with an ankle injury that is concerning because he is yet to play at all. So